Hey, this is John from Scopestack. I want to walk you through a feature of Scopestack that I'm extremely fond of. This is my baby. This solves a lot of problems, and it's one of our most widely used features for all of our enterprise accounts. So let me walk you through our Scopestack recommendation engine, which programmatically recommends services based on simple form inputs. So first off, I'm going to show you what it looks like to actually use a survey inside of a project and the outcome from that. And I'm going to walk you through how to set that up in a couple different scenarios so that whether you're trying to set up for yourself in your existing paid account or you're just curious how this works, you'll at least get a little bit of additional context here. So let's jump straight in, and I'm going to walk through using a survey that I built called Wireless Survey. So I'm inside of a project. I've added a few services to this one. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click Surveys right here. So again, the idea here is, whether it's a junior engineer, senior engineer, an account executive, how do you equip your team to scope out a project without requiring, the intervention or the help from some of your very highly paid technical resources, right? And so this is a great way to do that. All right, so I'm going to click Wireless Survey. I'm going to click Add Survey. So what you'll see here are a list of questions, right? And so I used to do a lot of wireless survey scoping, had this massive spreadsheet, right? Like we all did or do. And, I knew I needed some key inputs. And if I just had those inputs, I can calculate and do a lot of the work already. So, some address information. I need to know how many floors are in a building. The big one, of course, is, square footage, and I'm just going to type a bunch of zeros there. Ceiling height comes into play every now and then. Application type is, what types of applications are they going to plan on running on this, wireless infrastructure, because that will, dictate what that coverage looks like. And so we're going to do data and location-based tracking. And then that facility type, if it's a warehouse, they don't have to be so tight. If it's office space, a little tighter. If it's high density, much tighter, right? So it depends on the end scenario, but I'm just going to do office space for now. So, when we first built this, it's like, hey, I have questions that I want to make sure the account executive is asking so that when we come to the next meeting, they're prepared. We have all information. We don't have to start from scratch, right? Well, we took it a step further and said, hey, if you can give me that information, I can actually pre-calculate all the values and do all the stuff that we used to do in spreadsheets and recommend the actual services that you need to then add to a project. So think about the scenario from an account executive's perspective. I'm sitting there with the client. They said, hey, Billy, I'm going to call everyone Billy. I have a project that I would love for you to scope out. It's a wireless survey. Here's a building. And they say, yeah, sure. Let me collect some information from you, and I could probably give you an estimate here before I even leave, right? Because that turnaround is key. Time kills deals, and the sooner you can respond to a request like that to even just qualify it, you're light years ahead of your competition. So that's exactly what we did, right? So we took those form inputs, we calculated values, and we said, hey, you're going to need, for whatever reason, a router. But you're going to need this wireless site survey. And we already calculated, it's going to take 600 APs based on those inputs. We went ahead and increased that project management because we know when we go over 1 million square feet, it just requires some additional handholding, whether it's scissor lifts and contractors or, whatever, you name it. Right. And so the cool part is as an AE, I can come in here and then say, yeah, okay, review and apply, high level. Yeah, this looks good. Apply those recommendations to my project. Now, literally, right, you can see this $5,000 project went to $500,000, right, because we had 600 APs. And again, that's a combination of quantity and level of effort and calculation. But, at that point, they could generate this as a services estimate, hand that to the client, say, hey, here's ballpark, best practice what we do. If we need to sharpen the pencil or refine that, let me know. I can make sure our technical team is aware. And then we can get them involved, as opposed to, hey, Mr. Smart technical guy, I have a wireless survey. That guy asks you the questions like, okay, what's square footage, application types, what are they doing? Let me go back, right? And that whole back and forth process is what kills deals, or at least makes it go a lot longer. Surveys are extremely valuable. However, it does require some work to set it up, right? So in order, I often think of surveys as, kind of crawl, walk, run in terms of maturity. It's definitely running, right? Because you're starting to operationalize how you scope and price out projects much more than you were before. Well, step back, to get to the walk phase, I need to understand standards, and I need to know how I calculate level of effort and how I calculate how many APs are in wireless. So there's all that work. And again, I guarantee there are people in your organization that already have that figured out. They might have put it in a spreadsheet. So if you can couple those things, build those standards inside of Scopestack, then you have a much better chance of really, speeding up your services business and your throughput and your pipeline and all sorts of good stuff. But let me show you, what it looks like to set that up. Because again, at the end of the day, it's no different than building it in, a big spreadsheet. Just a little bit of a different way of doing it. So I'm going to click on surveys. You can see I had some other ones in here. And so I'll walk you through, another use case of a survey for like governance calculator. But let me click on my wireless survey here. You can see this is the one that we had published. Wireless survey, right? So essentially, what information, who needs to get notified anytime this form is submitted, just some basic setup. But then you have the questions, right? So here are those questions that you saw in our project. Application type being one example. And here's, name of options, here's the value, right? And I'll show you where that comes in handy in a minute. And then also a default answer. So do you want to choose one that's automatically chosen for you? That's helpful in calculations and things. Then from there, so let me walk you through the scenario here in this survey build out. I essentially have to create a lookup, right? So I need to know the application type and I need to know the facility type. And if I know those two things, then I can give you a square foot per AP. And again, this is based on just experience in the space, talking to other peers, right? There are some best practices around how to do this in particular. But essentially what this is like, hey, this is a facility type metric lookup. It's a number. Give me those two things. I want the value of where those two things correlate so that I can drive a calculation, right? So at the end of the day, what you can see right here is I want to calculate how many access points I'm going to need in this environment because that's how I can determine how long it's going to take me to do this survey, right? So you're taking that square footage, right? So that was that was an earlier question. And I'm taking that lookup and I'm just doing simple division, right? So 1.5 whatever million square feet divided by 2,500 square feet gave me whatever value that is. And then you couple that with recommendations. So, right, my wireless site survey said, hey, every time we're doing this, right? So when does this recommendation apply? Always. So we're doing a survey. I know I need to tell them, it's going to be a wireless site survey. But with that, I want to put in those calculated values in a quantity field for the subservice. So that's what's going to drive my level of effort, right? You saw it in the project, it was 600, I think. And so we want to put that calculated value in there. And so that's how you start putting all those pieces together to truly start, realizing some massive scale and very quick enablement of your team, especially as it grows. Another great use case, that I mentioned earlier is project governance. So again, a governance calculator, right? I think I started building this one out. So great questions. One of the things that we can do with this recommendation engine is, is an existing customer. Are they an enterprise? Are they mid-market? Who are they? Right? Are they engaged? Are they kind of, they always ghost us? Answer some questions on, the experience with that client, or if you don't have any experience, that might increase it. But the point at the end of the day is I can make recommendations based on some lookup values that say, hey, my project management, depending on how I answer these questions or my account executive answers these questions, I want to increase or decrease or add something else to governance. So again, it's a great way to not only add services, but to make sure that you're including those things that are really important to every single project. Again, there's some ways to do that, right? As we all know, I think short of understanding like where all the toggles are and the nerd knobs, as I call them, like if you can make it really easy for your non-technical account team or even junior engineers to scope out a project, then you have the ability to stop just adding highly paid, quite honestly, very expensive resources to work like this that they don't want to do that anyway. So again, I'll get off my soapbox, but that is our recommendation engine. It's an extremely powerful function of Scopestack. So if you have any more questions about it, and you're not an existing Scopestack customer, just reach out to sales@scopestack.io, and one of our technical account specialists would be glad to walk you through that. As well as if you're an existing customer, you're curious about learning more, just feel free to reach out through our integrated chat or emailing support@scopestack.io. So thanks for your time. I'll see you out there.